Episode of Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. This is the place where you're entitled to Brad's opinion. And now for your host, Brad Allard.
Taylor, I hear a lot of echoing. What do I need to do? Am I doing something wrong?
Does somebody have this turned up?
I turned off my phone, and I have my sound on my computer, but I hear echoing. What I need to do? Because I'm really technical.
Do you still hear the echo?
Not anymore, but it was during the
All right.
intro. How about you?
I heard it too.
Okay, Rex, where did he go?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. All I see is there you go. We're having a few adjustments on the fly. I had to reconfigure my computer because of the schools I work for. I had to reconfigure theirs, and so I had to erase all the cookies or whatever. And I hate being technologically illiterate. Unlike my guest Rex Russell, who's a wizard with technology, no doubt.
Oh, that is such a wrong statement.
Wrong statement. Anyway, how's it going, Rex? You doing all right?
Good.
You know, before we jump into the economy, we're going to talk about the gas shortages, or not shortages, but prices certainly, but the baby formula shortage and inflation and the market and the Fed and all that. On a somber note, Rex and I are both Baylor graduates, and I'm sure, Rex, you saw what happened in California with the Taiwanese Presbyterian Church.
I have some amazing insight on that from someone who knew that person very, very, very well. I'll share it.
Yes. Well, you could share it now. I just found out about this about an hour ago.
I grew up in Burleson, went to First Baptist Burleson, and one of the youth pastors at First Baptist Burleson was a man by the name of Rhett Payne. Rhett left Burleson and went to St. Louis. Then he spent about 10 years at a Presbyterian church in Marshall, Texas. One of the kids in his youth group was this young man that was killed in California, saving other people's lives.
Dr. John Chang.
Yep, Baylor graduate. And
exactly.
His story is amazing. He came home from a youth group meeting and encountered the gospel, converted to Christianity, went home and led his entire family to the Lord, then went off to college, kind of strayed a little bit, came back to the Lord, went home and led his wife to Christ, and then was taking this is years ago, he's been a committed believer for a number of years now, took his mom to that service Sunday because she wanted to be there to see the retiring pastor leave. And when the man started shooting people, this doctor jumped and tackled him, and the sheriff's report says he probably saved 30 people's lives.
Easily. I did not know he was a fellow graduate until about an hour ago. I was just reading through the chat rooms and such.
Interestingly, Baylor found out about it pretty quick as soon as they saw the name, and it was up on the Baylor website 2 hours after the shooting.
Yeah. Well, that's unfortunate. And then, of course, you have the business in Buffalo. It's been a tough weekend. And then I'm reading about how Chicago basically was a war zone this weekend. And it
always is.
Yes, it's getting serious. But we'll talk about other serious matters now. But first, let's talk about the sponsors because they make this possible, including the one I'm talking with right now. Hang on a minute. I got to do all this business here with the phone. But it started with Daniel with CrossFit Burleson, 317 Southwest Wilshire. He's been an original sponsor, and he's been a good guy. We all know Daniel. He's over at the CrossFit. Of course, he has, has a crane business, and he has based in steel and all this other business. He's a big shot. But anyway, thank you, Daniel, for your sponsorship, and I hope you and the family are doing well. Also, thank you to Shandy Stogsdill. I'm going to have her on Monday. We're going to talk about real estate because there's a whole lot of real estate stuff going on. Certainly, it's exceptionally expensive. It seems like these days. I'm glad I'm not having to buy into the market today, because that would be almost impossible. My daughter and son-in-law got in just in time, and they had a hard time doing that. So anyway, and then of course Rex. Rex. He's gonna. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your situation? What's your business?
Russell Wealth Group is a full-service financial planning firm. We deal with folks who are about to retire, in retirement, folks that have inherited some form of wealth from family. We do estate and insurance planning. We have an estate planning attorney we work with, have a CPA firm we work with. Pretty much cover everything. I mean, I'm opening a college 529 plan for a young couple today that are going to put $50 a month in a college plan, and I'm talking to someone next Friday who has $10 million. And so it's the gamut.
Ooh.
I mean, we are. I mean, Brad, you know me. I'm not I'm boots and blue jeans.
Yeah, right.
And, you know, we do a lot of work with doctors and veterinarian clinics, but we do a lot of work with individuals who just say, hey, I'm about to retire. A lot of folks we're finding out got slaughtered during the COVID, and so they need a little counsel as to what to do.
Sure. And we're going to talk a little bit about the markets as well, but I know you can't tell me on the air who the name of my new best friend is with his $10 million, but maybe later. But anyway, also Southern Jim. Yeah, I take Janine over there. It's got some really nice inventory. My wife is going to work there this summer, and when she leaves BISD, she's going to work there, hopefully mostly full-time, I suppose. I don't know what the hours will be, but Gayla Moore's a really, really wonderful woman, has some nice inventory, but she can do cleaning, she can do design, she can do repairs, she can do appraisals. It's a full-service jewelry. It's on the top of the Windmiller building, and she's looking to expand once they expand some. She's going to stay at the Windmiller building. That's a really nice location. But there you are. Also, Michelle Humphrey, I was communicating with her yesterday. I sent out a mass text. You know, it's the time of the month to, communicate with the sponsors. And she says, over at Hotworks, we're going to have a special day tomorrow, the Sweativersary, she calls it, on May 18th. Basically, she says she's going to have an amazing, that's what her own words, amazing joining special for anyone who joins the studio on Wednesday. So she's going to have some specials and some other types of incentives to join Hotworks over on 714 or John Jones, depending how you call it. It's over by Kroger and
731.
731. Picky. 731. I get confused between those two. 714, 731. Everybody knows where Hotworks is. It's a really popular place. I was there a couple of weeks ago, and they got all sorts of different programs, and so it's not just aerobics, it's Pilates, it's rowing, it's biking, it's the whole 9 yards. So it's a good place. So tomorrow on May 18th, the Sweativersary. Okay, what do you want to talk about first? Stock market, the Fed, inflation, gas? Take your pick. Are all great.
Let's do this. Let's talk from the top down.
All right.
And I was talking to a friend of mine on the phone this morning, Brad, and it feels as if we as a country have lost the ability to have a sincere dialogue about any subject.
Right.
Whether it's immigration, abortion, the markets, it doesn't matter what it is. We are so polarized, and be careful blaming the last 8 presidents for that.
Right.
We have all fallen into a trap of I'm right, you're wrong.
Right.
And I think it's fair to say we've lost the element of common sense. But I was just writing down some notes earlier today. I think the good news is we have access to so much information. We no longer live in a day where we have to go to the library and check out a book to find something. We no longer have to, buy a newspaper and look for something. Almost and I tell you, the studies have been done by the Harvards and the Yales. When you Google something, believe it or not, it's about 99% accurate. I got to hear a speaker one time say Wikipedia is not 100% accurate, but it's very close because it's all crowdsourced. And if someone put on my Wikipedia, I don't have a Wikipedia page, but if somebody put on my Wikipedia page that I was an astronaut that walked on the surface of the moon, somebody in my tribe would clean that up real quick.
Right.
And so the good news is we have access to so much information. The bad news is we have access to so much information.
Right.
Exactly. We've turned investing and the stock market and managed money and all the parts of that. We've turned it into a what have you done for me lately? When I first got in this business in September of 1984, you knew how well your investments were doing when you got your quarterly or annual statement. You knew how well you were doing when you bought a newspaper and looked at the stocks. Believe it or not, that was a better, simpler time because most people who make knee-jerk reactions are making it based on what happened yesterday. Doesn't matter what happened yesterday. But we have I've talked to a lot of people who are way more researched and a lot smarter and more surrounded by deep studies. And I will tell you this, whether you are Republican or Democrat, it should not matter what I'm about to say. If we don't fix some of these things in our culture and our economy, the bathtub is going to drain fast.
Right. And that's actually what I'm talking about on Thursday, because I'm going to revisit some of this business about that leaked abortion ruling, and not so much the
That's
content.
awful.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to talk about that, and what the response has been towards our justices, and also just how it's infecting our culture. And I read really some good articles. I guess the reason I'm revisiting is because now we've had a little distance from it. There's been time for commentary and whatnot, and I read some really enlightening commentary about this whole situation. It's along the lines you're talking about, is that it's just one more area in which it's going to be us and them.
Yeah, yeah. And the us and them doesn't work
No, it doesn't.
because it feels as if to me, and if it was a different kind of show, I would make a much more passionate plea for this. But
Well,
I believe
I don't edit my guests. You can say whatever you want. Yeah.
I would have to say that it feels as if the left, whatever that involves, is so angry and hostile. Now, are there people on the right that are angry and hostile? Yes, but hold off. It feels as if there's just no room for any logical debate. And I've said this before on this show, and I say it all the time to my clients. Most of our problems in the world is third grade math. If you want to go in and fix the broken cultures, whether it's black, Hispanic, white, I don't care what it is, it's third grade math. You have broken homes that are missing solid, strong fathers in the home, where modeling of good, strong behavior is missing. And so we're asking 12, 13-year-old kids to make up their own rules, and they're always going to pick the wrong choice. They're going to pick the distance from the shortest of A to B. And then we roll it up to where we've got stuff. I mean, my goodness, one extreme is it's a giant conspiracy. The other extreme is, oh, it's no big deal, don't worry about it. But how in the world can you look away from all of these food manufacturing plants, Brad, that are burning and bombed, and 2 of them planes crashed into them?
Well, that's part of it. When you're talking about in the latter half of the show about the baby formula shortage, and one of the things that struck me is they're like, well, how could you not see this coming? And I'm like, how could you not? I mean, how can you not see it coming? In other words, the Biden administration and others in the media said, "Wow, this is a total surprise to us that we're short on baby formula," and even the news has said, "How could you not see this coming?" And this is what you're kind of referring to. We have problems coming down the road, and how can we not see it?
Yeah, I mean,
see it coming?
and how come I can buy all of the mustard I can fill my truck up with? How can I buy all of the Frito-Lay scoops? I could fill my swimming pool with Dr. Pepper. I could buy all the trash bags I could ever pick up leaves in 50 counties. But I've got my third grandbaby coming in a few weeks.
Right.
They're trying to find formula.
That's right. And that's a
This
whole.
is real. It's not a Facebook rumor.
No, it isn't. And I've seen it on the shelves myself. And I'm concerned about inflation. And what I'm really concerned about the inflation is not just that it's happening. You and I have lived through this before, but the younger generations have not. Okay. We both are, graduated in the late 70s, 80s, and we lived through stagflation. We lived through what this meant. Gasoline crisis. You and I can remember sitting in line with our dads or maybe by ourselves, waiting for gas,
1972,
that kind of thing.
1973.
Yep. And I see that coming now. In fact, I'm talking about one of the articles I'm referring to. They have an interview with on Bloomberg about a producer of diesel in the Northeast, and he says, I'm quoting this guy. He's got a Greek name. I hope I don't mash it up. I wouldn't be surprised to see diesel being rationed in the East Coast, says John Castamonditis, close, the CEO of United Refining. They produce 70,000 barrels of petroleum products each day and sell gasoline throughout the western New York and northwestern Pennsylvania area. He says right now inventories are low and we may see a shortage in coming months. National diesel inventories are the lowest in 17 years, and East Coast stockpiles haven't been this low since 1990, according to the Department of Energy. And the real crisis with that is that we look at the gas pump, we drive by and we see 429 gas and we get shocked. But if you drive a diesel, my gosh, and I talked to my cousin up in Oklahoma who uses diesel for his equipment, and it's killing him and the other farming communities up there. I really see this summer a real problem because we don't have the infrastructure to get diesel to them without using diesel, because we don't use pipelines. We use trucks and trains. We won't have the diesel to get them the diesel.
Oil now, as we are speaking, just went over $113 a barrel. It was $115 this morning. And this is what people miss. Natural gas is $8.17 in MCF.
Yeah.
The reason why that's important is if you've noticed your electric bill at home or at your office going up, 99% of our electric co-ops get their electricity from plants that are powered by natural gas.
Well, I get my bill tomorrow, and I'm really looking forward to that. And it's always been fairly low. I'm out here in the country with the co-op. You get Johnson County Co-op out where you're in Egan?
I'm United Cooperative.
We're not a cooperative. Yeah, that's the old name, Johnson County. It's United Cooperative. Same here. And it's been okay, but I just thinking sooner or later we're going to get hammered. And and what bothers me about all of this is not just it's the gas, it's the Biden's administration's response to it. It's not like, no, it's our policies that may have contributed to this. It's Putin. It's the pandemic. It's,
Sometimes it's Trump. Sometimes he blames Trump.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just this current administration will not accept responsibility for anything. Now, I'm not saying that the Trump administration would jump up and raise their hand and say, yes, it's my fault. I mean, all administration try to project somewhere else. But what really bothers me is that you get this speech from Biden last week, right before the report came out, as he's reading off the teleprompter. I've seen Disney World animatrons with more emotion and life, and it's like, oh, it's Putin. Gas was going up well before Mr. Putin started his crazy war, and it's not his policies that restrict oil and gas production in this country. It's the pandemic. It's the
He killed the Keystone
Illuminati.
Pipeline the second day he was in office.
Right. The very first
By
act he
executive
did.
order, by the way. That needs to
Right.
be screened from the housetop. By executive order, not Congress.
Right.
He didn't even counsel with his cabinet or his energy secretary. He killed it with executive order. I think a lot of people found out the hard way. That executive order stuff, there's a great video that you can watch. He's wearing a mask. Kamala's right there next to him back when she was with him. And he's signing all the executive orders. And through the mask, you can hear him say, I don't even know what I'm signing. And she says, just sign it.
I haven't seen that actually, but it didn't surprise me too much.
It's scary.
Yeah. The problem I have is that we need to have some, not just outside the box thinking, but we need to, not be so hidebound by ideology, a green ideology, a left-wing ideology, if you will, to say we can't increase production here. And he'll say, well, we're selling all these other leases, but they make it impossible for those leases to be used.
Talk to oil and gas people.
They will tell you. I talk to one every week because some of us get together at our place for breakfast on a bi-weekly basis, and we both go to Sunday school together, and we talk a little bit. And he'll say that the guys out there said these oil and gas leases don't mean anything because we can't use them, and the restrictions are so strict and tight on us that we don't even break even if we started to drill. The thing that's
here's the other dangerous thing is you hear people complain about the profits of the big oil and gas companies. That is a dangerous, slippery slope when you're rooting for corporations to not make as much money. That's called communism. That's called communism.
It's called class war as well. That's another thing that the Biden administration is doing. They're blaming the corporations. And I read this on my Facebook feeds and all this about how this company or that company is massively profiting and all this other business. But I don't know if I trust the information, but that's not the point. It's just that this deflection works for a lot of people in this country.
It's a sleight of hand trick.
Yeah, Biden gets up there and says it's Putin or it's Exxon or it's Walmart or whomever you want to fill in the blank with or it's Elon Musk and it's Jeff Bezos. And he says the way to get out of inflation is to tax these rich guys more. Fine, tax them, but it's not going to solve inflation. That's not the problem. If they're not paying enough taxes.
Again, it's third grade math. If you tax corporations more, that's less capital spending they can do into the economy, and it's less people they can hire, and it's less growth they will experience.
Well, as far as the less people they can hire, they can't get anybody to work for them now.
No.
Yeah, and that's another phenomenon. I mean, you and I, we didn't even think about not getting a job, not after college or during the summer, or I don't know about you, but I've had brief periods of between jobs, and it wasn't like, well, I'm just going to sit here and wait for something to drop in my lap. We just went out and did it. I remember stocking groceries. I remember I worked in inventory. I worked for a Japanese moving company one summer, and I was the only non-Japanese person there. It was a
I was
great
trying to say,
job.
did you stand out like a sore thumb?
I was the only one there, but yeah, they all spoke English, and so it wasn't like, I didn't understand what I was doing. They're all better in English than a lot of Americans I know. But it was a great job. But I got at it as a job I needed to take. I wasn't like, well, I don't have a job, so I better just see what the government's going to do for me. It didn't even occur to me that that was an option, and I just see too much of that now. And I got friends who have businesses that are paying way more than the minimum wage, and they still can't get people to work. And I think that's hurting our economy too.
There's a Domino's Pizza in
Mhm.
Keene near
Mhm.
Egan that I drive past a lot. They
Mhm.
have a sign out front that says, I think it's $500 or $1,000 signing bonus,
Yeah.
$20 an hour.
$20 an hour to deliver pizzas or make pizzas?
It just says, I can't remember if it's $500 or $1,000 signing bonus,
Yeah.
$20 an hour.
Gosh. I remember when my high school jobs was making pizzas for Pizza Inn, which, I think they got bought out many years ago. I was making $2.45 an hour. That was the
There you
minimum
go.
wage at that time.
Yep.
And the thing about it is, when I was in high school, gas was like $1.58, and people said, "My gosh, would it be great to have $1.58 gas now?" Back then, $1.58 would be about what we're looking at now.
Mhm.
I mean, I had to work like 45 minutes to buy a gallon of gas. It's kind of how it works out. And now, I talked to a couple of business owners, and they're just desperate for people to work. And even the ones that they're getting, a lot of them don't know how to work. They don't know how to show up on time or appropriately dressed or whatever else.
And they'll
you
quit
know,
in a heartbeat. They'll quit in a
yeah,
heartbeat.
well, or they'll just not show up because of any excuse will do. I have a friend that called me a couple of years ago and asked if I knew he had hired some millennials. He's a lawyer, and he asked if I knew any older people that needed a job because he wanted people to know how to show up appropriately dressed. He was tired of people showing up in spandex or yoga pants for a professional office. But anyway, that's just two old men ranting. But I think it's indicative of what's happening in our economy is that our productivity. I read this yesterday when I was preparing for the show, is the lowest it's been in like 40 years, and that's not a good sign. And
I've said this
uh,
before, Brad, and I've said it to you.
mhm.
What scares me about the generations behind us, by the
Mhm.
time they figure out you and I are right, it could be too late.
My dad said the same thing to me, I'm afraid, and probably yours did too, but, because it's amazing how smart my dad got as I got older, and, that's that's part of it, but, what I'm really concerned about is this gas right now is like 4.29 is what I saw, and I use QT here in town as kind of a gauge because they tend to have the typical price, and everybody kinda bases their price around QT, it seems like. And then I drove by, it was 4.11. Now I saw 4.29, and that's within one day. And I can't imagine if I had a business that was dependent upon gas, deliveries, and transportation, whatever else, and it would be just absolutely brutal on the business. And that's where I'm afraid where we're heading is towards a
If
stagflation type period.
if oil goes above $120 a barrel, we will be
Mhm,
pumping gas at $5 to
mhm,
$5.50 a gallon, and
mhm,
it will be the tipping point to where people will have to choose food over fuel. They'll
mhm,
have to choose their house payment over fuel, and you're going to have people who just will not be able. And we're going to put people on the unemployment rolls at skyrocketing numbers. And what's maddening to me, Brad, is this
mhm.
is easy to fix.
It is.
This is
It
easy to fix. Get
Mhm,
government out of small business. Get government out of large business. Quit restricting. Let the oil and let the independent oil and I was in Alpine, Texas this weekend. Drove from Cleburne, Texas to Alpine and back this weekend.
mhm,
I can't tell you how many ranches and pump jacks and
mhm.
drilling rigs. Let the independent oil and gas companies, because that's where most of our production comes from. Everybody thinks it comes from ExxonMobil. The
No.
big producers are drilling the stuff off the coast out the water. The independent oil and gas guys, if we just get out of their way, supply will go up, revenue will go up, prices will go down, and it'll balance. But if we keep standing on the garden hose, you're
Mhm.
going to see gasoline at $6 a gallon by the middle of the summer in Cleburne and Burleson if we don't fix this thing soon.
What I see happening even before that happens is back to what you and I experienced back in the late '70s, sitting in line. I remember, when the Iran crisis hit, in 1979, and I just bought, my dad actually, I don't want to take credit, bought me a new car, a Trans Am. It looked like Burt Reynolds, except it wasn't quite as, it was in black. And it got like 8 gallons of, 8 miles a gallon or 8 gallons a mile probably. But you could only buy gas if on like every other day, like on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, if you're had an even number at the end of your license plate, and there was Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday if it was an odd number or a vanity plate, and no Sunday gas, none. And you had to, you had a limit of 8 gallons, but you couldn't go below that either. You had to buy at least 8 gallons because they didn't want people lined up to top off their tank or whatever. You had to buy at least 8 gallons, but you couldn't buy more than that.
Do you know what I read this morning on Facebook?
One
person reported that there's 3 places in Burleson today out of gas.
Well, one
of them was Walmart.
Walmart. Well, you think if anybody would have gas, it'd be Walmart, but because they got all the connections. But I am very concerned about the gas prices because I really think it's going to ripple through the economy in ways that we haven't really considered. And last week the inflation rate came out at 8.3%, and the administration was hailing that as progress. That's when gas on the average was like 404 nationwide. Now it's 448 as of this morning when I read it. And so it's going to skyrocket. Plus what happened is I saw the chart in the Wall Street Journal about this. They had a line on the chart about 8.3%. They showed the individual products that was going, where they passed or below 8.3. Housing prices were like 3 times that rate. And it's unbelievable. And energy, and rents, and also food products, not all food, but meat, poultry, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Imported vegetables well past 8.3%, and so dairy was like 6.5%. So yeah, it was below the rate of inflation, and they're trying to make a big deal about that. But the point is the things that we're buying are well past 8.3%, and I got real concerns about that. I'd like to show this clip. Taylor, you got the first one on inflation, and then we'll briefly talk about it. Then we got to go through the second round of sponsors because I'm still a capitalist over here.
I want every American to know that I'm taking inflation very seriously, and it's my top domestic priority.
On defense, facing low approval ratings on the economy, President Biden says the pandemic and Russia's invasion of Ukraine are largely to blame, along with congressional gridlock.
Look, I know you got to be frustrated. I know. I can taste it.
The president also calling out Republicans for what he called an ultra-MAGA agenda.
It is, isn't it?
Some Republicans are pushing back. Senator Rick Scott calling on Biden to resign over inflation.
He took no responsibility, and he has no plan.
With inflation soaring above 5% for a year now, the pressure is mounting as gas prices hit another record high. The national average now $4.40 a gallon, up 18 cents from just 1 week ago.
When it affects my budget, it affects my family also. I can't afford to buy the food that they need because I got to put it in gas.
In order to pay for gas, groceries, and other essentials, Americans are increasingly turning to credit cards to make ends meet, even though rising interest rates make that debt more expensive. 229 million credit card accounts were opened in the first 3 months of the year. And the impact of higher prices is hitting retirees especially hard.
I never thought at 73 I would be going through making these kinds of choices.
Some have even returned to work as living on a fixed income has become more difficult with prices going up.
I'm very frustrated because I recently retired and spent.
This is NBC, the Today Show, by the way.
Building up to
right, this isn't left, right wing.
Yeah. And now I had to take like a part-time job just to get through.
And Joe, today's inflation report is expected to be a key measure of how long the worst of it may last. What is the outlook? What are experts expecting?
Savannah, inflation for April could very well plateau or come down. We may have peaked already, perhaps dropping to 8.1%. But listen, that would still be at 40-year highs. Now, hopefully the worst is behind us as the Federal Reserve continues to raise those interest rates, making borrowing money more expensive and cooling off that huge consumer demand that is really driving this inflation. Savannah.
All right, Joe Lincoln.
Thank you, Taylor. You have a response, do you?
Yeah, none of that's.
Yeah.
The only thing that's accurate is we're a mess 40-year record.
Well, he could taste the inflation and frustration. I'm glad
That's
to hear
so
that.
creepy, beyond creepy. What does that even mean?
Well, I think that even that's not too long ago that showed aired. It was about 4 or 5 days ago, and I think it's already out of date.
You know what's interesting, Brad?
Mm.
Again, we were in Alpine, and then we went further southwest
Mm-hmm.
into some almost. At one point, it looked like we were about 10 miles from Mexico, and we
Mm-hmm.
went into a what do you call it? Where you walk into when you go into a new town and you go into
Mm-hmm.
their
Chamber of Commerce.
We went into a visitor center.
All right.
About 10 miles from the border. We were talking to the lady there. She's Hispanic. And we
Mhm.
started talking about this title. Is it title 42 or 45? What is it?
It's 42. It's the COVID.
Yeah.
I don't know what you call it.
I asked her how concerned they were in their
Mhm.
city that there's supposedly 174,000. She said on the other side of the border waiting to get in. And I
Mhm.
said, what will happen? And she said, and this was a quote. She said, "We will get run over."
Well, that's what it said in the
No.
paper today. April was an all-time record in terms of apprehensions at the border. And I had a whole show about this about 2.5 weeks ago about inflation and immigration. I said that's going to be the two issues in the next election. And I still stand by that, even after all the business with the Supreme Court. Because what's going to happen is when that COVID 40 or Title 42, which allowed us to deport people without asylum hearings because of the COVID issue, now it's going to be restricted or lifted rather. It's going to be lifted a week from today. In fact, they just said it's going to be like the Oklahoma land rush, and it's
Why would
going to
it
be
not be?
nuisance.
Why
Well,
would it not be?
well,
I mean, seriously,
exactly.
if you and I had our families across the border, we keep assuming that every single one of those people crossing the border are wicked, evil, rotten.
Oh no,
gang
most of them are
members.
not.
I would say it's probably accurate to say 85 to 90% are just people who are
Right.
broken. But at the same time, if we wouldn't do that in our own homes, we can't
Mhm.
do it in our own country. We've got to
Well,
do this
you know,
the right way.
we were talking about this in our Sunday school class about welcoming the stranger. As the Old
Right.
Testament asks us to do, and we're not in favor of open borders. We want them treated humanely, and we also need to remember that these are human beings. And if you and I were in that situation, it definitely would be something we'd think about doing if our family was at stake. So I don't resent these people. What I resent is a government that is cynical about it because they see political exploitation. They see this as something positive in their favor, as
Right.
and it's the racial politics, which I despise, because they assume that once they get in this country, they're all going to be Democrats, which is totally false. I mean, I think the polls are showing that to be true, but I really get concerned when our administration just seems to be so futile in dealing with these
Mhm.
major issues. And then it comes out with the Supreme Court ruling, which is serious business, of course, but they want to focus on that as opposed to inflation, immigration, and these other issues that are hammering us on a daily basis.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and so, I'm going to talk about that decision on Thursday some more. And both of us being pro-life, where I'm coming from on that issue, but I'm going to talk about what it's done to us, it now and then, about the politics of it. And so, but let's run to the second round of sponsors, and then we'll get back to this very encouraging discussion. Thank you to, come on, Otto. There you go. Here's something, Rex. I don't know if you saw this. You probably did. Rex and his brother Benji, who has the Our Place store in Mansfield, they've been giving away
I did see that.
baby formula. They've been doing it primarily through the Mansfield restaurant because of logistics and whatever else, and it's just, I think that's incredibly generous. I mean, this is not like he just came across. He went and purposely bought a lot of this formula and was just giving it to people. They're not buying customers. They're just coming up and taking a can with them. And I think it's incredibly
Mhm.
generous. Now, that didn't stop a couple of nitwits on the Facebook page that were it's rather notorious around here, criticizing them, thinking they're trying to, publicize their restaurants through
Of
this. And I thought,
course.
yeah,
Of course.
what's the matter with these people? I mean, seriously, or what kind of demented people would say that? Particularly if you know Benji and Otto, incredibly generous to the community. And
Mhm.
I praise Otto and his brother Benji for that. That's true Christian response, generosity at your own pocket, because this note's donated. He bought it himself out of their own revenues. And so when you patronize these businesses, that's why I like my sponsors. All right, I'm going to deviate. These are good people. I'm really pleased to who sponsored this show. I'm honored by it because these are people that are concerned about their community and have things to do other than sit around Facebook and bellyache. And so this is a good thing. And same thing with Chris over at Wild Cigar. I know you're not a cigar smoker, but somehow you would look natural with a cigar in your mouth. Oh, you are a cigar smoker? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good for you. I didn't think you were for some reason. Well, but that's got a great humidor, and Chris has got a really good business going on over there, and he's also very generous.
Is this one over by American Revelry?
Yes, it is. It's right next to
If you
Doughboy.
blindfolded 1,000 Johnson County people and took them in there, they would think they were in New York City.
Well, and it's a nice place. You can take our wives there. It's not like some dive. It's a nice place.
Not a dive bar.
Yeah. I was there yesterday. I went by to pick up a gift card, and it's just a nice place. It was quiet. People were, having a cigar, maybe having a drink. They were doing stuff on their computer. It's a good place to do a little work. There you go. Also, Antonio Basalo over at Proactive Payment Solutions. I hit him on about a month ago, and he's a great immigration story. And he's the kind of story we like to tell about ourselves, because he came here as a young child, and now he's making businesses and prospering. He's a certified electrician with an ongoing business. So he's doing pretty well. And that's a story we like to tell about America. So
now, what is Proactive Payment Solutions?
Point of sales operations,
Gotcha.
Yeah, and help you with all the streamlining of your business and invoicing and all that. Plus, since everybody pays pretty much electronically now, would help you with that. And then of course you have Tiffany Griffin over at Local Life Magazine, the marketing group. Local Life TX is up. She's working right now on the June issue. It's a really good place to advertise because it goes to 30,000 homes here in the northern Johnson County area. I've been trying to get her to move, and she is moving, but she's starting to look into moving into Cleveland. So you may see this in your neck of the woods pretty soon. And so it goes to 30,000 homes around here and 110,000 people. And every time I go into a business and there's some on the counter, there's some on the coffee table. So there you are. Also, a couple of nonprofits are going on. Taylor, do you have those with us floating around?
I've got some of them.
Yeah, right. Good for you. This is why he gets the big money. That's why I endorse Local Legends, because he's ready and able. All right. Well, have you heard about this, Rex? The Caring Physicians Trade Network, the Burleson Medical Clinic.
I did hear about this.
All right. I'm going to have them on the show when we can arrange it. They're busier than can be. The Burleson Medical Clinic is a free medical clinic it's on the northwest corner of our old parking lot of First Baptist. It used to be that Promises building, the small one.
Yep.
And it's really, really nice. And I had the mayor on a couple of weeks ago. I had some video clips of it. And it's not for like Medicaid. It's for people that are working but can't afford insurance, the working poor, if you will, and for them and their families. And it's a blessing. How about the one on the golf tournament? Do we have that one?
Yes.
Yeah, there we go. Second annual Spartan Regiment Classic. Kerry Brady's putting this on for the Spartan Regiment Band. We're going on trips. So $100 per player, $400 per group over at the Southern Oaks Golf Course. So that's going to be a fun time. So check into that. There's look at the QR code on their webpage. Side note, I had Gabrina Solis of the Burleson Chamber of Commerce on yesterday, and they have a golf tournament at Southern Oaks coming up in early June, I believe. So we'll be promoting that when it gets to it. Is there one more, isn't there? The voting. Yeah, that's the one. Voting. Early voting. Over here in Precinct 3, you could vote early at the Burleson Sub Courthouse or at the Precinct 3 maintenance facility in Alvarado. And then on the 24th, a week from today, it's a Republican primaries over here. We don't have any Democrat primaries or runoffs in this part of the county. I think there's maybe one over in your part. Are you in District Precinct 3 or 4?
I believe I'm in Precinct 3. I'm 806 and 917 in Egan.
Yes, you're in. I believe you're over here. So
Jerry Stringer was my county commissioner.
You're in 3. Yes. Okay, now it's Mike White. Now, yesterday I went and voted for Chris Boddicker for county judge and for Andy Nolan for Precinct 3 Justice of the Peace, and that's whom this show endorses. Now, I don't know their opponents, or I'm sure they're fine men. I appreciate their willingness to serve, but these are the two men that
good for you.
I have supported, and I've had them on the show. And Boddicker is a Baylor undergrad and law school grad, so there you go. So that'll give you some incentive. You know he's a fine man. All right, back to the less pleasant stuff. And when we're talking about the Fed, you sent me something about a week ago, and you were pretty upset with Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Fed, because that you don't think he's done a very good job, is basically what you said.
He's an idiot. I mean, what he said about, well, he basically said, "Whoops, we messed up. We didn't see this coming. We were too slow."
Right.
There's ways to cool off the economy without throwing the emergency brake and doing what he's done the last few weeks.
Right.
I mean, Volcker, Paul Volcker, and then after him was Bernanke. Bernanke was good at easing us in.
I thought it was Greenspan.
Greenspan was good too. Yeah.
Okay, I thought Greenspan was before Bernanke, but that's just me being history.
No, you're right. It was Alan Greenspan for the boom during Reagan. But he knew how. I mean, remember when he would walk into those Fed meetings and people would try to figure out, based on the size of his briefcase, whether he had a lot to say or a little to say based on that. But he knew how to ease us in. He's the one that came out. He's the one that came up with the word irrational exuberance.
Right. Yeah, I remember
that's when people were buying, Yahoo for $800 because they just knew it was going to go to $1,600 next week. And he said that's irrational exuberance. He was brilliant. He had a conservative mindset in that he understood if the U.S. economy is healthy and growing, everyone benefits. Everyone benefits. And that's what I just get so frustrated with is this whole us versus them. I'm worried that there are folks on the left that would pump gas at $8 a gallon just so they could say at least Trump's not in office.
Yes, or encourage Teslas, right, Taylor? I'm just kidding. I like to yank him a little. But Taylor's kind of smirking at us because he's got a Tesla and we got.
My son drives a Tesla. Let me shock you, Brad. I would buy an EV tomorrow.
Oh, I would too if certain other things are in place. I don't have any problem with electric cars or whatnot. On principle, for me, it's a matter of affordability right now. But I also don't want to be coerced into that decision. If I want to buy an EV, I want to buy it because I want it, not because gas was so expensive, or that was part of some long-term policy goal that try to move us away from
the green movement.
Yeah. So if I want
to, even Elon Musk says 80% of his Teslas are petroleum based.
Right. Well, I mean, they're not making them out of fairy dust, but
that's right.
But what really gets to me about the Fed in particular is that, like you said, they were kind of, inflation's not going to be a problem. It's a temporary thing. Transitory is the word that Joe's going to regret using because you're going to see that in commercials during the election. And I'm not an expert, but I knew what was coming. Anybody could see that was coming because inflation is not something that comes off and on. It builds up and then it takes a long time to build back down. Once it's in the system and the wages have risen to try to match inflation, and once it isn't like they'll come down, it's called a ratchet effect. And once we hit a certain price level, we're going to stay at that price level.
Yep.
And so this whole thing about inflation isn't like gas is not going to go back to $1.99 or whatever. It's not like I'm shocked that sometimes I go to the grocery store. Just little things, not like just the meat. You can buy higher end meat at a decent price, but the lower end stuff where most people can afford is more expensive, like $6 hamburger. No kidding. And, if you want to buy tenderloin or something like that, it's like $16-17 at Sam's. But if you want to buy a hamburger, it's more expensive per pound, actually, or proportionally. And what bothers me about inflation, who gets hammered the most by these high gas prices and high food prices? The poor, the working poor. If gas prices do get to $7 a gallon, I could probably talk DBU and let me do my class here from my seat on their system, right? I may not have to get in my car, but for a lot of people, they have no option but to get in that truck.
That's right.
And go to work. They don't.
Here's what everybody's got to realize: everything we consume, clothes, food, you name it, we consume it. It gets here by planes, trains, or automobiles. Automobiles being trucks. And when petroleum and fuel and hydrocarbons are so expensive, like I say, while we've been talking, oil's been bouncing around 113, 114 a barrel. And the trickle effect of that is, oh my goodness, if oil hits $120 a barrel and we see $6 gas in Burleson and Cleburne, I just don't think people understand how bad that's going to get.
Well, and I look at all these people, driving around and pulling flatbeds, working class, right? Working men, driving flatbeds or driving big trucks, whatever else.
How do they do it?
I don't know how they do it. I really don't. And I get concerned.
$1 a mile.
Well, it's supposedly this week, Powell's going to raise the interest rate again. How is that going to affect the market? Do you know? Is there any correlation, or is it just?
It's priced in a little bit. I mean, right now I looked at it a while ago. Right now, the Dow is up 350 points. But you got to remember, like you said a while ago, yes, the NASDAQ is up 237, but for the year, the markets are down 10%.
Yeah, I saw that in my 403B.
We've got to have a horse race for the rest of the summer to get back to break even. Just because the numbers are green doesn't mean we're good.
No. My wife has a 403B, and we've lost money. Now, fortunately for me, we don't depend on it. It's still just an account over to the side. We don't tap into it. But still, we lost money. We lost money. And for a lot of people that depend on those type of retirement accounts, I'm sure you deal with this day after day, don't you? I mean, you're probably getting your phones ringing off the hook from people. Do people call you up in a panic, or or they kind of got a grip on themselves?
Not to beat the drum, but I think we try to do a good job up front of building the right kind of house so that when the storm hits, the roof doesn't leak.
Right.
And a lot of what we do is alternative investments like real estate investment trusts and stuff like that. But at the same time, I've got lots of folks in the market. I had a conversation with a client 2 weeks ago, and he was ne'er too happy with me. And unlike the president, I couldn't say, what's Biden? Because what would he have said to me? I didn't hire Biden. I hired you.
Right. So that does happen occasionally. You get pretty tense with their investment advisor, huh?
I would if I was them.
Yeah. Well, it's like they said, you can't be a mind reader, which helps us transition into the next one about the baby formula thing. Taylor, you play that first one for us?
This morning, for millions of parents, the frantic search for formula is getting closer to home.
It's scary. It's scary not knowing if you're going to be able to feed your kid.
And the shortage is growing. 43% of the nation's baby formula supply is out of stock.
There was one day that I went to 11 different stores and could not find any.
Overnight, the White House announced new steps to address the crisis as President Biden met with retailers and manufacturers, including Walmart, Target, Rickett, and Gerber.
Our message to parents is, we hear you. We want to do everything we can.
The administration is facing growing pressure.
This is not a third world country. This should never happen in the United States of America.
The new measures include increasing imports of formula, cutting red tape, and asking regulators in states to crack down on price gouging. But the White House acknowledged there is no timeline for when parents can expect to see the results on the shelves.
We would certainly encourage any parent who has concerns about their child's health or well-being to call their doctor or pediatrician.
Well,
for many families, the need is dire. According to the CDC, only 25% of infants consume only breast milk through their first 6 months, and many rely on specific formula brands.
I've seen moms in the store crying in the formula aisle because they can't find their baby's formula.
Inventories are now so low that some major stores have put limits on how much baby formula you can buy at a time. The months-long shortage comes from a voluntary recall by manufacturer Abbott Nutrition that prompted the shutdown of a major plant, all of it made worse by supply chain issues. Now, parents are scrambling for solutions. Online, searches for homemade formula have spiked, but experts warn against making your own or diluting formula, as both could be harmful for your baby.
We try to tell parents to remain calm and make sure that they contact us.
Well, Blaine, you mentioned the president's new measures. Some lawmakers, including some Democrats, saying it needs to go farther.
That's right, Savannah. Some are calling on him to invoke the Defense Production Act. It's a war-era measure that gives the president emergency powers to order some companies to produce certain goods. Now, it's something that the White House says that they are exploring, but already at least one company says they're already running their plants 24/7 around the clock, and they say that's only part of the solution. Savannah.
All right, Blaine Alexander
All
leading
right.
us off. Thank
You notice I use NBC. You know, it's not 'cause I'm a big fan or not. It's not it. I want to, when I do these kind of shows, I don't want to be accused of, dialing into One American Network and that kind of stuff. I want to use stuff that they would access themselves. And when they say it's bad because they have, I think, they're more of a rooting interest in the administration than say Fox would or something like that. There's basically 4 companies that make baby formula in this country. And when Abbott went down back in February, supposedly there was some sort of, they thought there was a connection between its product and some illnesses that babies were experiencing. It turns out that isn't really the case. At least it's inconclusive. Didn't happen. But it's been shut down ever since. But see, there's 3 basic reasons why, and all these could be foreseen a mile away. One is we don't import from Europe because apparently European kids aren't healthy enough or whatever. So we don't import formula from Europe. 2, we do import it from China, but they've been shut down. I mean, literally shut down because they have a policy of COVID restraint that makes ours look like Sunday school. I mean, it completely shut it down. And thirdly is that when you have one of your major producers go down, then it's going to be a real problem. And now yesterday, Abbott and the government reached an agreement that they can start producing again. It said at the best it'll be about 8 weeks before it hits the shelf. But even if that happens, it's not going to solve this problem because that's just one producer. The other factors are in place here. The embargo, I guess, if you want to call it that, or the ban on European-based formulas, and we're not getting any Chinese formula any soon. One of the big companies is called Perrigo, and their president said the supply chain gridlock plaguing the baby formula market will likely last for the balance of the year.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. So he's one of the 4. There's Abbott.
And you know
Perrigo.
what? Let me interject this and
Sure.
see if you agree.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you like Donald Trump or not,
Mm-hmm.
if this was happening under Trump's watch, even if you said he's an arrogant buffoon, he's just doing this, he would walk up to the microphone and shame these companies. You better fill the shelves with baby formula now. And he'd figure out a way to force them to do it. Just like when we needed more hospitals in New York for COVID, he stood there flat-footed and ordered those 2 giant Mercy ships out there, floating hospitals. They never used them. He stood there and saluted that flag. Again, all things aside, like Trump or not, he would have figured out how to solve this baby formula deal, even if it just was about him.
Well, I agree with that. Here's also another is from the editorial from the Wall Street Journal, which I like to use quite a bit because I think it's right of center, but it's not. It's very well thought out. Them and the National Review are the best conservative sources by far. Anyway, there's 4 of them. There's Mead Johnson, Abbott, Nestle, and Perrigo, whom I just quoted. And the article says one reason the market is so concentrated is tariffs up to 17.5% on imports, which protect domestic producers from foreign competition. Non-trade barriers such as FDA labeling and ingredient requirements also limit imports even during shortages. So if we lifted the tariff today, we still would have to lift all these other restrictions on getting imports. And you're a grandfather, right? Aren't you? You just said before the show or early in the show that you were Dawson's expecting another child?
I have a almost 6, almost 4, and a new one on the way in July.
And I'm sure they're already starting to respond. But one thing that struck me is ignorant people said, "Well, if you can't get baby formula, just breastfeed." A lot of women can't do that or a lot of babies don't accept it. I have a former student. She's about 21. She just had her first child, and she, for whatever reason, she didn't go into details, breastfeeding is not an option for her. And she was in tears about not being able to find formula. And all babies are going to use formula. This idea that they go from breastfeeding to solid food just like that, obviously, is somebody that has never had a child in their home. And it just astounds me. that Republican Congresswoman Stefanik from New York is right. This is a third world problem. Now, we couldn't get the video to work very well, so we're not going to try it. But on Face the Nation, Margaret Brennan really blasted Pete Buttigieg. She said, "Look, you saw this coming. This thing, they were having shortages already at the end of last year, and then he shut down Abbott." Yes, yes. She said, "How could you not see this coming? It's May, and you knew this was happening already back in December. And then when you closed down Abbott, you didn't change any of the laws or whatnot. And then you saw what's happening in China. How could you not see this?" Biden said, "Well, I guess if we were mind readers, we could have seen it." And Brennan kind of mocked that, saying, "How could you not see it coming?" And he gives some, BS excuse.
I
About
got a
all
question
they're
for you,
doing.
Brad. How bad
Yeah.
does the Biden administration have to get before everyone agrees it's a nightmare? I honestly believe that it could take us all down in flames, and there would still be people standing their ground agreeing it's still good.
What's interesting though, is I do watch mainstream media, even though because I want to have
Me
a
too.
I want to know what's being said. I don't want to get on here and say, "Well, I saw it on Newsmax last night." I want to be able to say across the board. I've told my readers or viewers many times. I go from New York Times to National Review, but I watched some of the news broadcasts and they're pretty critical of Mr. Biden. I thought, that's a sea change. But you're right. If this had been Mr. Trump, the first of all, I don't know if it's be happening. I think
probably wouldn't.
Well, I think the gas situation would be different.
I don't think the war in Ukraine would be happening if Trump was president. Good or bad, whether you like him or not, I don't think that would be happening.
Well, I've talked about Ukraine before, and I'm not unsupportive of what we're doing there, but I'm not also going to let that be an excuse for inaction or incompetence on our part over here. All right, I'm not going to say that because we're helping out the Ukraine that we have to pay a price for it because we don't handle our business right. We if we were more involved in that war in Ukraine, would we have some effect over here? Somewhat, but this is well past that. This isn't something that started with Putin, and it isn't strictly related to Putin. And what I read about what's happening in their response, like the agricultural problem. My cousin and I were talking about this. Their response is to increase the amount of insurance and to increase the amount of acreage being planted. He'll tell you right there that's not going to make a darn bit of difference about how much weed's being planted.
Nope.
And it also basically, he'll tell you that crop insurance is basically a giveaway, and that's all it is. It doesn't increase the amount of acreage one iota, or at least usable acreage. And so that's a non-starter. And also talking about increasing their subsidies. Well, that's not going to help either. And then I haven't even gotten on student debt. I'm sure you have quite the view on that.
I wrote a check every month to Dallas Baptist University. Where's my student loan forgiveness?
It's a fine university. It's well worth the cost.
Yes, it is.
But that's a topic of conversation in my house because both my kids have student debt. So I'm going to tread lightly on that one if I ever get around to that topic because it's not a unanimous opinion in this home. But there you are. That's the way it is. But to kind of sum all this up, where do you see us 6 months from now?
6 months from now, is that November? Where are we at?
Well, I guess so. But I mean, politically, I think we know what's going to happen unless the Republicans nominate a bunch of idiots, which they've done before. We're having a primary in Pennsylvania that has me a little concerned.
The hope that I have to answer your question. By the way, on a side note, I've always thought about this. Your clips were emceed by Savannah Guthrie of NBC Today Show. And she is deeply concerned about inflation and the cost of things. You know what her annual salary is? And I'm glad she gets it. She earns it. $8 million a year.
Oh, that's going to be high.
Her base salary, $685,000 a month, and she has a $300,000 a year side account to cover expenses. Now, let me say that again. She gets $8 million a year plus a $300,000 a year side account to cover expenses. You would think that would come out of the $8 million, but anyway, my point is, we've got these people in the news that are telling us how bad it is. President Biden says he can taste it.
Ooh, that's a poor metaphor right there.
That's awful, especially with him.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, the hope that we have is, besides Biden, besides the White House, besides all the politicians, Americans hopefully are going to get up, go to work, and consume durable goods every single day, and that's what drives the economy.
Mm-hmm.
We are a free enterprise capitalist society, and we make things, we grow things, we build things, we create things. Elon Musk, all he's ever done is make electric cars that go 350 miles on one charge, and he built a rocket that takes off and lands safely that's reusable. That's all he's done. And he employs 115,000 people.
And he's moving to Texas. Or he did.
He has moved to Texas.
Well, Taylor is Elon Musk's #1 fan, so
I am too.
Yeah. So, but my concern is that we will have a recession this time next year. We have stagflation because there's a lot of things that Rob and I considered maybe doing this summer. Take a trip, a weekend trip, whatever. Even just driving to San Antonio for 3 days, something like that. That's all off the table. I mean, the hotel expense, the gas expense, and the restaurant expense. I put a price tag on a Riverwalk hotel for 3 days in late June, right? My birthday.
$1,500.
Exactly right. It was $1,500, and for that's if you drive there. Now, we also thought about going to see my son in St. Louis. Well, that'll be about a $1,200 round trip ticket, plus whatever hotel we'd have to stay in because we ain't staying with him. So I'm just saying a lot of things are going to be put off the table because we're going to be having to buy gas and food instead. And it's easy to blame Biden for everything. I don't blame him for what's going on in China. What I do blame is that this was not foreseen as a possibility, and we didn't have any kind of preparation for it. I don't blame him directly for COVID, but I do blame him that we didn't have any provision to account for it economically. And particularly with the gas, I do blame him for that, for restricting our production here in this country and making it.
Supply and demand rules never change.
Yeah. And that I give him a lot more blame for. This baby shortage, what I blame him for is that crass comment. Well, I guess I should have been a mind reader. No, you should be the president.
Real leaders don't make excuses, Brad.
No, they don't. And they don't blame everybody else. They don't blame Putin. They say, whatever the cause is, we're going to fix it. You can blame whoever you want, but I'm the man in charge, and I'm going to do my level best to fix it. And I'm not interested in making sure you know that I'm not at fault, which seems to be their only default situation. So I got a lot of opinion about Mr. Biden. I just think that he has been so focused on other things that these things got away from him, and then he wants to blame everybody else for what's happening.
Well, here's what we know, and it's harsh to say this, but it's the truth. He's not making any decisions.
I believe he's being pushed very hard by.
He is not making any decisions. Who in the world walks into his office and says, "Mr. President, here's what's going on in China. Here's what's going on in Ukraine. What do you think? What should we do?" No, we know nobody's doing that.
Well, I really do believe that he is so beholden to the left wing of his party that if he did honestly try to address the gas issue by loosening up regulations, suspend this methane recapture in the oil fields, so allow them to drill, that's a real problem for him.
That's huge.
Do it. Yeah, if you just say we got to get this gas in the pumps, his left wing will go nuts, and AOC will say mean things about him on Twitter and all this other stuff. And so I think they focus on other things. Yesterday or Monday, no, it was last week, he gave an order about, racial equity issues within the federal government. Okay, that's fine. But when we're dealing with these problems, focus on this rather than making sure everybody in the federal government's gone through a training program about racial equity. That's what he should be focused on right now, is these problems. And then when we're in a situation where we're back to normal, if it ever comes, then we could look at ourselves and what we could be doing. But that's not what's happening. And I just don't know. I've got real concerns. And
it's a cliche, and it sounds lazy to say it, but we really are right now rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic.
Well,
again, that's lazy, and I didn't put much thought into it. But that I've never said that and felt more accurate than described where we are right now. We're talking about the country going down in flames financially, and we're spending an entire day talking about UFOs.
Yeah, I saw that this
Congress
morning.
is debating and watching video of UFOs. And I told a buddy of mine today, I said, honestly, here's the truth that nobody's going to be willing to say. I don't know. I don't think they're UFOs, but if there are, what am I supposed to do? Wear a blue shirt tomorrow?
Yeah, it's not going to make any
Use
difference.
my turn signal different?
Well,
I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Evidently, if they're out there, they're going to leave us alone. But we're going to spend the entire day, and who knows? Did I send it to you? That we're spending millions of dollars sending messages out into space to communicate with aliens? That's a real thing. You can Google it.
Well, I've seen that. I don't know what source I saw it in.
We're sending messages to aliens to communicate, spending millions of dollars for that. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And our shelves are empty of baby formula.
Yeah. Well, I'm out of time. I'm going to run through the ads one more time. I'll let you have the last word. And thank you, Daniel, CrossFit Burleson. I hope you're doing well. You and Amber and the kids over in 317 Southwest Wilshire. Thank you, Shandy. Like I said, I'm going to have her on Monday to talk about real estate. And speaking of another issue that needs to be dealt with is price of housing. So she'll be on to talk about that on Monday. Also, Rex here. I'll let him have the last word about what he's got on his mind. Thank you to Gayla over at Southern Gym. Hope you're doing well. I'll see you tomorrow at her Burleson TX BNI networking group. And she has a great inventory, all these full jewelry services on top of the Windmiller building. Also, Michelle over at Hot Works on now I know it's 731 over in John Jones. Also, remember tomorrow on May 18th, if you come out, you get the special deals being offered for new memberships and things. It's an amazing joining special, she says, for anybody who joins the studio on Wednesday. So come out there tomorrow and check out what she's got. She's got a lot to offer there. Also, thank you to Otto. Thank you to you and your brother for being so generous. And thank you for and providing a great restaurant too. I was there just yesterday and I'll be there Thursday again. So I spend a lot of time there. I don't have a life. Also, thank you to Chris over to Wild Cigar. Good place to go and ponder life's mysteries, what we've been talking about. You can go over there after listening to this show and, give it some thought over a cigar or a decent drink or whatever you like. Also, thank you to Antonio at Proactive Payment Solutions. Hope you're doing well. And check out proactivepaymentsolution.com for the interactive payment solutions he has for you. Also, Tiffany, hope you're doing well. I know you're working hard. He's, putting that magazine together. It's pretty tough work, but she seems to enjoy it. So Local Life Magazine is out in the mailboxes and it's on the table. So give us the last word. Give us something to part with.
Buy low, sell high, dollar cost average. There's a lot of stuff on sale right now. If you don't have a financial advisor, get one. Don't try to fight this stream by yourself. If you don't
know
have
one
one,
to no one to yeah, you know one? I'm sorry, I stepped all over your promo. Say it again. I stepped all over it.
No, that's okay. I said, you don't have a financial advisor, find one, get one you like that speaks your language and aligns themselves with your risk tolerance and your goals. And if you don't have one, you need one, give us a holler.
Absolutely. And I can recommend them. Absolutely. Because we've known each other for a long time. And I can recommend them not just for your candor, but for your integrity. And so I appreciate not just you being a sponsor, but I appreciate you being here and giving us your insights. And so I second it. If you're looking for an advisor, you're not going to do any better than Rex Russell. So I appreciate that very much. So tomorrow, Thursday, I'll be talking about some other political stuff about the impact of that Supreme Court hearing some more and whatever else that comes up. I appreciate it. All the sponsors. Thank you, Taylor.
Always.
And this will be on YouTube if it isn't already. Also, the podcast with Gabrina Solis should be up any minute now. So you can check that out as well. So thank y'all. We'll see y'all.
Thank you, guys.
All right.